I feel stuck. To be honest with you, I feel stuck. It's like if I sell my property and take what equity I do have in it, then where do I go? And then, like I said, rolling into the past year and a half, having to pick up a second job just because I couldn't stay ahead of, the property taxes.
What I have learned is if you remain silent, first of all, they're going to continue doing it, increasing your property taxes. And then you're not going to be part of the solution. You're going to be part of the problem. And now we got to cut back on inventory because either I'm going to pay my taxes or I'm going to buy inventory, I'm going to hire an employee.
I want to define what a sociopath is. A sociopath is a person who will lie straight to your face, even though those lies hurt their own family, their own friends, and at the tail end of the day, themselves. That's the definition of a sociopath. What I'm doing here is laying down a gauntlet. You people who are ignoring what it is you're doing when you know full well that the laws are being broken, when I have delivered to you documents, 1.5-inch binders that you chose to throw in the garbage, you, by definition, are a sociopath.
Breaking news as states drop bombshells on homeowners. And today's video is going to center around the overwhelming property taxes and how that's actually bankrupting America. And one of the things that we're doing differently in this video is Mitch Wexler and I are actually interviewing two different families. One family that's going to talk about the impacts of the fraud and corruption as it pertains to their primary residence. The other family is going to talk about how it's impacting their business as they're a business owner, a mom and pop business owner. So before I go into that, Mitch, how's that petition?
It's climbing. We're up 110 from yesterday. It's slow because it takes time for the word to get out. But like I said, I'm thankful for everybody that's signing because it is crucially important when we go to show that to the judges. They have to understand there's real people that are being severely damaged, as we're about to see in these upcoming interviews.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so proud of, the movement, Mitch. I mean, it's been mind-blowing. I'm humbled by it, but I want to start by just dropping some bombshells. Exactly what the title is implying, and I wanted to show you, Mitch, what you've taught me. So you let me know what bombshells I've missed, but you've taught me a lot, my friend. One of the things that you've taught me is in your little tiny appraisal district, the cumulative fraud from the make-believe values that they're creating for assessment on taxes. It's almost 1.5 billion. So when we look at the entire nation, the fraud could be in the trillions. And here's another bombshell. Fraud, think about this, guys. Fraud is what's holding everything together. And another bombshell, at least 37% of homeowners are about to go bankrupt. Another thing I'm starting to figure out, Mitch, is that the wealth gap could be built, and that fraud, the whole wage gap and stuff, could be built on the CADs. The Central Appraisal District. So Mitch, before we dig in to talk about these families, if you can, man, just update the viewers on where you're at with the lawsuits, update the viewers on what's going on with property taxes, how, the counties are committing fraud. Then we'll get some reactions on these videos. But brother, go ahead and clean up those bombshells. But before you go too far down that rabbit hole, how'd I do with my bombshells?
You're pretty much dead on point. So 1.34 billion is what DCAD, that's Denton Central Appraisal District, stole from the taxpayers. This is cash out of the taxpayers' hands based on over $67 billion of overvaluation. So you have overtaxation, overvaluation. They're jointly hooked at the hip. Then that money gets placed into the bonds at the taxing entities, i.e. the school districts. And as you're about to find out from the previous video that we did, if you go back and look at that and the current video here, in a few minutes, you're going to discover how a lady by the name of Carrie, how her CAD in Fort Bend stole money from tens of thousands of people simply by lying in the difference of the square footage of the houses that they occupy versus, in other words, they're guessing at the square footage versus the actual square footage as is shown in the MLS system. They're two completely different data sets. And when you have two completely different data sets, that means that CAD, just like Denton Central Appraisal District, it as a CAD, are in fact not using NewsPap. The databases are in fact corrupt. And that is how the theft, the overvaluation and overtaxation is occurring.
One more thing I want to remind the viewers that did not catch the first whistleblower video is we have on record actual testimony that is acknowledging that the appraisal district in your county removed 60,000 comparables out of the system and, quote, manipulated the data and put it back into the system. We got some cleaning up to do here. Before, again, Mitch, before we begin, do you want to get into any intimate details of law, any other bombshells, again, before we go into Carrie, the single mother who's had to get a second job? Anything else you want to go into right now?
Yes. And this is like an onion with 1,000 layers. And the more you peel, the more you want to cry. I want everybody to know it's extremely difficult in a video, a single video, be it 30 minutes or 40 minutes, to touch on even 5% of the depth of this criminality. We're doing the best we can. We've got people now in Florida, a group of attorneys that have reached out to us to pick up the ball in Florida and start filing constitutional suits there. So there's a lot of things that are on the go as a result of these videos. And the more you pump these videos into the marketplace, wherever that happens to be it X or Twitter or YouTube, whatever you have, even sending direct emails to people, is crucial. With regard to the 60,000 properties, that statement under threat of perjury was made by Don Spencer, the chief appraiser. We took 60,000 properties outside of the database, manipulated them, and put them back. They were manipulated in Excel. Charles Stafford, shortly thereafter, the board member of Denton Central Appraisal District, said to Don Spencer, "Mr. Spencer, you are the masters, you and your team are the masters at guessing." Well, that's pretty well the whole case right there, because they're not using USPAP, they are guessing, their databases are corrupt. Don Spencer, by definition, is a straight up criminal. Why? Because he violated his own oath. The oath says to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Texas. Violating that oath is a third-degree felony. The DA should be prosecuting him based on his own testimony. You can't have people manipulating data. Where the hell is that written inside a USPAP? Oh, Mr. Chief Appraiser, you can go ahead and manipulate the data inside that system. That's perfectly fine with us. It's perfectly fine under USPAP that you completely ignore the comps and ignore the database and, per Mr. Stafford's statement, guess. None of that is allowed in law. The whole purpose of USPAP, the entirety of the purpose of USPAP, is to be quantitative, not to be guessing. So under the Texas Penal Code 3711, defaulting in the duties of a public officer is impersonating a public official, which is a third-degree felony. He violated his oath. Texas Penal Code 701, intentionally failed to report criminal activity. Well, the board has been put on notice. Every time you send out, everybody that's out there sends out one of these videos. And by the way, I have notified dozens of public officials. I'm doing it on purpose. I'm making them intentionally what is known as a person of knowledge. Every time a video goes out to one of your state representatives, one of your legislators, you are in fact helping to make them a person of knowledge. And where that goes is Title 42, U.S. Code 1986, knowledge of a wrongful act and power to prevent. You've got them on what we're setting up are federal laws that have been violated as well as state laws that have been violated. The people that are choosing to dig their head in the sand and not paying any attention to this, that are in fact on these boards or on the ARB panels or members of the staff of any one of these central appraisal districts, guess what? You're co-conspirators in a criminal conspiracy to defraud the public. The amount of evidence that we've got is simply off the charts. And that can be seen at mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD. We're hiding nothing. Over and above hiding nothing, we're literally shoving it down the throat of all the people who are participating in this fraud and choose to turn a blind eye towards it. Next thing is, I want to define what a sociopath is. A sociopath is a person who will lie straight to your face, even though those lies hurt their own family, their own friends, and at the tail end of the day, themselves. That's the definition of a sociopath. What I'm doing here is laying down a gauntlet. You people who are ignoring what it is you're doing when you know full well that the laws are being broken, when I have delivered to you documents, 1.5-inch binders that you chose to throw in the garbage, you, by definition, are a sociopath. So what we have here is a whole lot of people in the public that are getting mad by the second. And people do things, when you make people desperate, they do desperate things. I'm here to try and stop that. In fact, Carrie was very much concerned over her condition. I reached out to her after she left the voicemail, and the net result is what you're about to see on a video in a few minutes from now. But the bottom line is these people are committing crimes, and this has got to stop before something really bad happens.
Yeah, I mean, the guessing and manipulating is bankrupting homeowners, and your efforts are appreciated. Even if you make a difference in one person's life, Mitch, I mean, geez, the heartbreak that's going on across the nation over property taxes and fraud and how embedded it is systemically is shocking. So let's start with Carrie. Carrie, just for the viewers, Carrie, like Mitch was saying, reached out to Mitch, kind of just looking to say thank you. Actually, I think to say thank you and to, I think she needed to talk to someone and need to explain, like, hey, there's a lot of people that are going through this. So we're going to play that video. You guys are going to play the whole thing. After the video, I'm going to go ahead and get Mitch's reaction. And do me a favor, when this is done playing, comment below and shoot Carrie some love. Carrie Parker, how are you today?
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm good. I'm really happy that you came forward, that you reached out to us. And I want to get into kind of why you reached out to us, but I wanted to explain to the viewers, how much I appreciated your courage. And, I really think your story is so important for them to hear because it's happening to, I got to figure, over half of the people that are buying new houses. They're getting blindsided by property taxes. They're having to get second jobs. It's a bad deal, Carrie. So, first of all, can you tell us, and for the viewers, can you tell us why you reached out to us? Why did you reach out to Mitch and I?
Absolutely. I don't believe anything that happens in God's world by mistake. What I mean by that, I work in the field and listen to different things all the time, but especially things that relate to everyday stuff that I deal with and go through. But I wasn't even looking for anything like what you do in the real estate mindset. And it happened to come up on YouTube. And I just started listening, and I was just taken aback by what was being said. But it felt like there were certain connections being made of questions on things that I had been having. To me, that it was just divinely guided that I listened to you guys that day. So much so, I did everything I could to reach out and talk about and understand better, because I didn't feel early on when I first got my home that there were certain things I was aware of or understood better.
Yeah, I mean, and so in other words, it's, and thank you for being honest. I wish that you watched all of my videos, Carrie, but I mean, it's fate. I mean, it sounds a little bit like fate, you guys. I mean, she was stressed out. She's a new homeowner. When did you purchase a home?
Purchased in 2020.
So she's recently purchased a home in 2020. She's going through some, and you're about to find out some pretty horrible challenges with property taxes. She saw the video of Mitch and I, and then she decided to call because she, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but you were confused about the protest process. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, when you purchased that home, and it was a new home, it was brand new when you purchased it, did your realtor explain to you, like, filing the homestead, fighting the protest value? How much did your realtor help you understand that process, or did anybody?
Did not. The realtor, 2020 was a really odd time, because when I bought the house, or I made the decision that this is what I was going to do, everything had pretty much slowed down. So that was May. And when I first met the builder, I knew the builder was a good builder, very credible. And the realtor did not explain the details of what it was that was going to partake as far as from start to finish. Never a mention of, hey, you might want to look to see about, filing for a homestead, let alone what to expect as far as your, property appraisal and that down the road. The best advice I got was from the mortgage person, who I am very grateful for. He said, you know what, even though your house note is this, he was like, you're going to want to pay above that, especially into the first year or two, because there will be a leveling of certain things, tax wise. You just want to be prepared. But even with that, it didn't prepare me fully for what I was going to then experience into the next couple of years after.
And Carrie, I've warned people about exactly what you're just saying, basically a surprise bill. And I want to get into that. But first, I wanted a couple steps back for the viewers. Now, Carrie had to learn all this herself, essentially. And so she was able to file the homestead. That's step one, file your homestead. So you have depending on your county, you have an immediate tax break. So that's helpful. But where she got stuck was the protesting of the value. And that's really the fraud that's going on here. Now, what she's also saying is, because it was a new build, her loan officer told her to put an extra $500 aside every single month. The reason her loan officer told her to do that is because he's a good loan officer. And Carrie, imagine all of the new homeowners that their loan officer doesn't tell them, and they get the surprise bill. And so the loan officer told Carrie to put, was it $500 aside, right?
Yep.
For your
Yep.
payment.
Yep.
Now, were you able to afford that extra $500? I mean, explain to the viewers why you had to get a second job and how the payment actually went up $800, not $500. And explain the down payment. Explain, you're not a naive homeowner, right? You thought you took the necessary steps of due diligence up front so that you wouldn't be in a situation to be living paycheck to paycheck. Can you explain that?
Yeah. And I don't want to get emotional when I share this, but my mom died the day before, COVID, March 19th, 2020. And she was the sole survivor of a plane wreck, and my dad perished in 97. He died, but she survived. Out of that, when my mom passed, it allowed for me to have a sizable down payment above what, to get an FHA loan or whatever, recommended. And that again was really great direction from my mortgage guy, that he said, you're going to want to put this much down in order for you to be able to make it, meaning, making sure, I paid off my car. There were certain things I set in place, but even with that, I wound up still having to get a second job. Matter of fact, I, started a business, doing pet waste removal. And I'm an educated woman. Even with everything that I researched and did, home buying is so stressful to begin with, but I had no idea the amount of stress and strain that it was going to be even after what I had initially put down. And then, like I said, rolling into the past year and a half, having to pick up a second job just because I couldn't stay ahead of, the property taxes. And I know I'm not the only one. And I said before, I'll be darned that I'm going to lose what I have to pass on to my kids, and what my mom and dad went through and sacrificing and giving to me, in my first home. And so, but I thought that I really understood and knew better. And to be honest with you, I'm still learning, and it's very frustrating, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge transaction, but there's just so much systemic fraud. I try to explain there's just so much stacked against homeowners. That's why I can't charge them for. I've made a home buying course. I can't even charge for it. I'm like, there's too many people in need, Carrie, and I think I think what you're saying, it takes a lot of courage. You're definitely not alone, and I understand. I mean, up front, you try to put money down from your inheritance to be able to afford it. Kind of got away from you. You had to get a second job. That takes time away from your child. You're a single mother. And as you've taken that second job, it not only went up $500, it went up, I think you said, an additional $300. So now your payment's and this is just property tax, or primarily property tax. It's now $800. Can I ask you, and I want to get around to what warning you can give to people, but, and any answer is okay, right? No one knows your situation like you do, of course. Do you wish you would have waited to purchase? Do you regret the process in any way?
It's interesting you say that. I think when I did, it was the best time at that moment. What I mean by that is the interest rate, thank God, was low enough, but now I couldn't afford to be able to get into a home, especially it's not even just the fact of, the interest rate. What good is having a good interest rate if your home's being you know, overvalued in what the price actually is of what your home really is? The overvaluation, on the property appraiser side, you know, I feel like I can't win. I got a good interest rate, but then when your property, appraisal comes in and they overvalue your home based on what, you feel like you're still behind the eight ball. I feel like at the time I did my due diligence and thought, I was asking all the right questions, especially not having gone through this before. And the long and the short of it is that even though I have a good interest rate, now it seems like it's counteracted that because now, as I said, it's the, overvaluation of my home and the property tax, they're killing me. And if they're killing me, I know they're hurting a lot of other people. And that's the hard part of it. Now would I buy a home? No. But then again, where are you going to move to? Rent's
It's
up,
yeah,
home prices are up, property taxes, are killing us. And it's hard, really
yeah,
hard.
yeah. It is hard. It is hard. It is hard. I mean, it sounds like you may have got a little bit caught up in the moment. Maybe you
Mhm.
have some, but if you bought it in 2020, you probably have some equity, which is, but
Yeah.
have you asked yourself what would you do with the equity? I mean, the equity is actually costing you money. It's almost like just take the equity. I mean, how would you feel about losing that equity? And would you consider selling if you knew you? Because I've listed my property in Harris County. I got no interest, but that's in my area. I mean, what are your thoughts on selling and cashing in?
I thought about that because I do have equity. But from what I see, just in my neighborhood alone, houses are sitting, but my house is favorable considering its size and, the quality of the builder and whatnot. But, I've been trying to listen and pay attention to what I hear, which is, try to sell if you're able to, and take that equity and go on. But again, I don't know because I can't plan or predict the future, but everything I'm watching, I feel stuck. To be honest with you, I feel stuck. It's like if I sell my property and take what equity I do have in it, then where do I go? And two, will there ever be a time? I don't think we're ever going to see, at least in my lifetime, the interest rates be as low as they were back in 2020. Um, I don't know. And then where would I move to, you know, for the fact that, to get a 2-bedroom apartment for the size place I have, I'm paying about equal, in my mortgage right now, with more incentive. But the downside of that is the stupid property appraisal, how is that going to look, a couple of years down the line? And I think that's why more and more people are put in the position they are and selling their home because they can't afford it. And it's heartbreaking because it's like I'm working 2 jobs just to stay afloat, just to be able to maintain what I have and want to keep, for myself and for my family. And am I going to be able to? I'm scared to death to see what 2025's, tax appraisal is going to be. And it's like, do I make that move now or do I wait? I don't know.
Carrie, would you be able to afford your mortgage without the second job?
No. I would,
So,
I would be on it would be very tough. I could, but it would be very tough. Very.
Okay. And I asked that because I don't think that the lenders are doing a proper way qualifying borrowers to afford a house, especially when it comes to new homes. I mean, because you see, like, your payment went up $800 in 4 years. They're not taking that into consideration when they're underwriting your file. I mean, no, thank God, again, your loan officer told you, but your loan officer failed to tell you how to do your homestead, I'm assuming, or at least they failed to do the protest. I mean, I could tell you, Carrie, it's sad. It's sad, but you're not alone. And I will say, probably, again, if we have deflation in the housing market and if we continue to protest, it will eventually go down, right? So obviously, don't give up. And I know we've been talking for 14 minutes. I only wanted to keep it 5 to 7, but I mean, you're just so powerful what you're going through. I think people need to understand that they should not rush purchasing a house, that things change, that nothing's forever. Can you carry on? What warning can you give back to that first-time home buyer that is naive? Like, you're educated, you understood to do certain things, you've got your inspections, you did those things, right? But you have to understand, Carrie, there are people that are way less prepared than you. There are people that have not even filed their homestead, Carrie. They don't even know what that is. What warning, can you give to them?
Man, from experience, one, I always say prayerfully consider everything. Make sure that you are in a position, especially in today's market with everything that's going on, in the housing market. Do your research. Make sure, especially if you're looking for a builder, do your research. If it's new construction, do your research on your builder. You know, talk to other people, get experience or gain insight from others who maybe have used that particular builder, and find out information on that particular builder. Make sure that you have, if you're using a real estate agent, make sure that you have somebody who is truly vetted, somebody who is truly working and looking out for you. And right now, with the times we're in, everybody's going to be scrambling, in the real estate market. From what I see, it's feast or famine, kind of, even for the realtors, is what it looks like. I don't know, because that's not my niche, but make sure you find somebody reputable who's going to be honest, and working for you, not just in your realtor, but who they use as far as their mortgage company. To me, interview, take 3 people, talk to them and ask them questions and have things laid out, and then make your best decision. What I see has hurt most people is that, especially if they've moved from out of state, that they move here sight unseen. Maybe they came in the early stages of when their home was being built, just to put in all the pretty stuff, right? But beyond the pretty stuff, it's like, did you, for me, I hired somebody during construction to do my home inspection. And then post-construction, to make sure during that post-construction walkthrough that if there was anything, because they will rush you through, doing that inspection, in the end, especially. But even with the 1-year warranty, I wanted to have something that would stand to where I had that punch list done, so I could make sure that the builder took care of every single issue, from outside to inside, what was under the roof, all of that, and make sure that they covered everything within that 1-year warranty. That's a big deal. And then lastly is, just make sure you can afford it. Have more than just what they recommend as far as your down payment. Have more than that, because that, I think, is what has thrown a lot of people, into the problems and the issues they're having. I know not everybody was in the same situation that I was. And I honestly, if it weren't have been for my mom's passing, and to be able to put down what I did in a initial down payment for my home, I wouldn't have been able to afford to do it. Not off of what they were saying, those programs that are out there. And when they say, oh, you only need, 5, whatever, 5, 10,000. No, you need more than that in order to be able to offset, your cost of living and not to balance out that debt ratio deal. So yeah, just be prepared.
Well said, Carrie. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully, we'll get some undercover videos made of the quality of construction. I know you're an inspector, so we'll talk about more of the upfront due diligence. But again, thank you for your time. I'm going to head back to Mitch, and we'll be in touch. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Travis. God bless what you guys are doing. Keep fighting.
Pretty powerful statements from Carrie. Can I ask you, what is the biggest thing you took away from that interview?
That there are tens of thousands of carries. The amount of video or the amount of emails that we're getting. I did reach out to Carrie because I heard distress in her voice when she left the voicemail. It was important that somebody reach out to her and talk with her and just help her understand. Then I asked her to do me a favor. I just said, put it in writing, send it to me by an email, and send me your comps. Send me what the CAD had given you, the actual grid. So she did that. She sent the grid, and then you and I, two people who know exactly what they're doing and exactly what to look for, literally spent an hour digging into that grid. And what that grid shows is that comps number 3, 4, 5, and 6 are in fact not comps. They're fraud, straight up. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but one was up 70 feet. The other was up 110 feet. These are houses that were used on her grid versus the actual size of the square footage. And that was determined by looking at the multiple listing system versus what the CAD had put in there. In other words, the CAD's numbers had artificially inflated the housing square footage of the comps that they were claiming were comps. Straight up fraud, irrefutable. So although it doesn't sound like a lot in terms of square footage, when you extrapolate that out to the households in that county, that ends up being about $7 million of additional fraud raised on that one issue alone. But here's the problem. How is mom and pop, who knows nothing about how a grid is put together, how are they supposed to know that the fraud on the numbers is the fraud in the numbers? It's insanity what's going on here. And there is no defense. There is no CAD. Their CAD can't defend that. My CAD, Denton Central Appraisal District, cannot defend taking a property from $750,000 to $2.8 million. There's no defense. All they're simply saying is, well, this is what we were taught. Well, let me put that to bed right now. If you were taught to commit murder, does that mean murder is legal? Of course not. That's the first thing. The second thing is, ignorance of the law isn't an excuse. The third thing is, when somebody is telling you, like all these people that are out here now writing in to you, the CADs, and that are going to be forced to file suit against you individually, you ARB members, you RPAs, you chief appraisers, you deserve to be sued joint and severally liable. When this occurs, then you will start paying attention and stop the nonsense. However, I want to take it one step further. The truth of the matter is this cannot be fixed. The only solution is to eliminate the property taxes. End of story. There is no database that we have seen inside the state of Texas that is accurate. Just the opposite. They're full of fraud. You cannot put this genie back in the bottle. All these politicians got together over the years and kept trying to manipulate the public. Well, this is what we're doing for you, the public. We're adding 3 more people onto a 6-person board. That's complete nonsense. 3 people can't outvote 6 people. All they were doing is placating the public. What you have here is a criminal conspiracy to defraud. It is time for people to start filing lawsuits against these individuals, joint and severally liable, sue the state under the constitutional challenges, and break the system. Because people are going to lose their livelihoods, they are going to lose their houses, they are going to lose their pensions. This math, it's over. Everything's over but the shooting, as my father used to say. And what we're trying to do is stop the shooting before it gets out of the chute, literally.
Well, some people have already been shot, unfortunately, Mitch. And I guess in many cases, all we can do is prevent future people, from getting shot.
I want to go one step further. Do you know that Denton Central Appraisal District literally installed under Hope McClure bulletproof glass? If you weren't doing anything wrong, what the hell are you doing with the bulletproof glass?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing I took away from Carrie is how, first of all, her courage, and I really admire it. And she prayed before I started the recording. She prayed. But, Mitch, you're talking about a single mother who really wanted to protect her child. So she did what she thought at the time was all of this upfront due diligence, right? She put extra down payment from the inheritance of that tragedy. So she did all of this planning because she never wanted to get, paycheck to paycheck. She didn't want to take a second job. And she was still blindsided. She still had to get a second job, Mitch. She's still living paycheck to paycheck. She's not spending as much time with her daughter. And that's sad. And again, and Mitch, the thing is like she purchased the crazy thing, dude. The last thing she purchased in 2020, brother, that was when rates were way lower and prices were way lower, and she's still struggling. So what does that tell us about a homeowner that purchases today?
She did everything right. She's 100% in the right. The CAD has committed fraud. I get a little amped up on this because I've spoken with her prior to you and I handling her account, and she's one of tens of thousands. And the reality is she's been, when a board, an ARB member literally sits down and tells somebody, I'm sorry, go get a second job to pay your taxes. The reality is that ARB member can go to hell. You want to cause a fight? Let's go. And that's why we're filing these lawsuits. For those members out there who actually have money and can help, go to your attorneys. I want everybody to understand, we've done the heavy lifting. Everything that's on that website is the heavy lifting. If you want to speak to an appellate attorney, I will put you in contact with my attorney, and we will explain to you how to file these lawsuits, not just at the state level, but at the federal level. We will explain to you how to file these lawsuits and press criminal charges against these people. The ARB is out of line. When somebody says, go get a job, you have to understand that that is the abject definition of RICO. If you create a debt under RICO and tell somebody, pay me that debt or I'm going to shoot you, that's RICO. Or I'm going to bankrupt you, that's RICO. It's not that the laws aren't being broken. It's adamantly clear that the laws are being broken here. What's not being done is the DAs prosecuting. And what we need out of these videos, get it in the hands of your local DAs. Every time I push out an email, if it goes public, I send it to the DA. I send it to the FBI. I'm making everybody fully aware of what we're doing. You cannot hide under a rock. You cannot possibly know that these things aren't happening. And the idea, like I said, that somebody says, well, go get a second job to pay the taxes. The taxes are a fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. And the impacts it made on Carrie and that family. So what I'm going to do, Mitch, is just for the sake of time, let's switch on over now. And just for the viewers, now we're going to listen to Peter and we're going to listen to Fernando. Fernando is a business owner. He's a mom and pop business owner. He owns 4 businesses and the appraisal district has been robbing him. Anyways, let's play the video. I'll come back. We'll get Mitch's reaction. I'll tell you what I learned. Enjoy the video. I have Peter and Fernando here right now that are going to go into the impacts of the appraisal districts, the impacts of the overwhelming property tax, and basically what that's doing to Fernando and his family. And before I begin, Peter, brother, your story is amazing. Can you tell the viewers who you are real quick, Peter?
Yeah, my name is Peter Svensson. I live in Cleburne, Texas. I spent 42 years in the country music business. I was an independent record promoter, worked about every country artist you can believe. But when I was planning to retire, I built investment properties. I have about 26 units, 14 duplexes on different locations. Some is for elderly people, very nice, gated, and so forth. And so this was going to be our retirement for my wife and I. But they took one property. So basically, he is overvaluing properties where we can't raise the rents enough to justify paying the tax. And the people of our community, if we raise the rent even $200, they'll all move out. And in Cleburne, real quick, they're living in the overbuilding of hotels during the gas period. And they're renting them by the week because they can't afford to rent.
What I want the viewers to understand, Peter, is that you're helping Fernando. I wanted the viewers to understand how I even know you, why you even
Okay.
reached out. You reached out because this man that's sitting next to you, Fernando, he apparently has several businesses. The county appraisal district has overtaxed his businesses. Peter, I want to know, why are you helping Fernando?
Okay. Well, I understand the plight of people in this town of overtaxation. And I believe a lot of people are being overtaxed. I don't have to help them, but I've chosen to. I go to CAD board meetings and fight for them. And I just see what they're being taxed, and they just can't afford the amount of tax they're giving. And so I go to meetings and speak in behalf of it. And I am doing everything I can to go from city to city and trying to get their attention that we are being overtaxed in Johnson County.
And Fernando, can you tell the viewers, what kind of businesses do you have, and what happened?
Well, I'm actually in the flooring business and the countertop business. I'm also in the Westerwear business, and I've been investing into this community. Buying properties, renovate them, fix them up, and pretty much investing in our community. That is affecting us. The property taxes. It definitely is affecting us. The property taxes. I'll give you an instance. One of my properties, they had it appraised, an empty lot. It was an empty lot. They had it appraised for about $71,000 to $72,000. And that was the previous year. Then this year, they went up to $246,000. An empty lot that someone illegally dumped in my property. So that tells you something. And what's funny about these here is that after I started complaining all these here, we just check on the records, and they brought the price back down. I would like to know how that happens.
Well, I would also like to know how that happens, Fernando. I think that's what we're trying to figure out. I think Peter would agree, and Mitch. I don't think there's math, man. I think that it's an illusion of legitimacy, a process. But I wanted to rewind a little bit because it's blowing my mind. I don't know how this is legal, and I don't know how a business owner can adapt. You're saying, and Peter said as well, y'all had a property. Peter said y'all had a property got appraised 1 year for $835, and then the next year $1.9 million. I don't understand how you could justify that unless it's a new construction going from land to a dwelling. And then what you're saying, Fernando, is your business was assessed at $72,000 and has now been in 1 year assessed for $246. My question, Fernando, that type of value increase, what are they telling you? How are they explaining they came up with the value? And then what does that do to your business?
Well, it does affect the business in the way that now we got to cut back on inventory, because either I'm going to pay my taxes or I'm going to buy inventory, or I'm going to hire an employee. For instance, I protested my taxes last year, and it took him over a year to come back to me. Okay. And during that time, my banker told me that I was not in compliance with the bank because I have not paid off my taxes. I told my banker I cannot pay my taxes because I'm protesting them. I can only pay based on last year. So it took these guys over a year to get back to me. Then after we settled, then they sent me an invoice. Then when was that? Like it was on June. It was June 28th when I arrived at my house, and he had to pay. It had to be paid by July 1st. So how much time frame you had to pay? Now I was paying over $1,000 on late fees. You see, it's just kind of
How much did you have to pay? What was the surprise bill? How much?
How much was that?
How much did the bank want you to pay?
Originally they wanted me to pay about $12,000.
$12,000?
Yeah, because it's what the pressure district wanted, and then we ended up paying $9,000. We settled. But remember, then they penalized me for sending the payment late. Because I received that on a Friday, but the Monday, or you have a very short time frame to pay off that bill. Then they penalize me for that.
And you made a comment. You said you have to decide whether or not to pay taxes or get inventory.
Correct.
That's pretty, that's a pretty scary thing, to think about. How long have you been in business for?
How much they increased your business from 175 to
I've been in business since 2008, and multiple business. My deal is I want to help this community. And I have big plans for the city of Cleveland, by the way, to even open up a restaurant, to do multiple things in Cleveland. Actually, I have 3 stores in Cleveland right now. And I was going to do a restaurant, but with the way these guys have raised my taxes makes it very, very hard for us. And the economy is not in the greatest shape, don't get me wrong. But my question is, if we don't say something, what about the person that is sitting at home looking at this big bill on how they're going to pay off their house taxes because they're about to foreclose? A family to be put on the street. That's why I want people to know.
Fernando, the thing is, brother, I would be worried about you. Because this problem is happening all over the place, and what we really need to do is exactly what you're doing. And I want to talk to Peter some more about what actions you guys are taking. But my gosh, man, I mean, a $12,000 bill. You have 4 businesses. We're just talking about one business. I don't understand how mom and pops can even stay into business with that level of double, even tripling of assessment value. And again, Fernando, did they give you the math? Did they say, Fernando, this is how we're doing it, it adheres to the code? Did they do anything like that?
In reality, not. Because when I went and talked to them, they said, "Oh, we do it based on the value of the properties. What property they're selling right next to you." Well, I show an instance. I show one how much I had paid for this property, which was about $175,000, but then they bump it up way up to, or I think it was over 500,000.
Yeah,
500,000. I do some remodeling. Don't get me wrong. So I had to hire someone to protest these taxes, and I feel like the system it's out of place because you have to pay someone to protest your taxes almost every year, and then whatever you save, you have to pay to this person that you hired. And I tell you this because people need to know this in Johnson County, by the way. I tell you, the governor of Texas. I'm going to go back to this here. He makes up. I just Googled it, and it shows that he makes about $153,000 a year. So the sheriff in our county, he makes way less than that, which is they put their life on the line. We tremendously appreciate what they do for us, by the way. But I just find out that the chief of appraiser of Johnson County makes somewhere around $250,000, and does not live in our county, by the way. I think there is a problem there. I see as a problem. How can you represent your county if you don't even live in your county? Your taxes must be so high that you don't even live in our county. You have to live somewhere else.
Fernando, I'll say, man, the taxes are that high because of the fraud. If it wasn't for the fraud, then you could afford to pay the next town over's sheriff. But it's just like there's so many different layers of systemic fraud. It's unbelievable. And I wanted to ask you, Peter, and I know because I want the viewers to understand a little bit more of your involvement. If I'm not mistaken, and I know this is the first time we're talking, literally we had a small window to talk. We're throwing this together. Mitch was like, you got to talk to Peter. Have you teamed up with Mitch? How are you spearheading this? Are you opening a lawsuit? What's your intention, Peter? How are you going to move forward to stop this? Are you even capable? What's going on, man?
Okay, I sued the CAD board 2 years ago and won because I built some new properties for about $235, and the first year they taxed me at $360 and then moved it up to $400,000. Well, I won that lawsuit, and it's sad that you have to sue them to get results. So I put together about 8 more landlords and people that have been overtaxed, and we're getting ready to file a suit with Mitch's help through an attorney that he has that understands what we're going through. Now, other means that I've done, I attended the CAD board meeting that was open to the public. And fortunately, a lot of the old JCAD members have been bumped off, and we've got new voted ones in that understand our problem, okay? And so I appeared before them, and I pointed out Chapter 23 of the Texas Property Code and went to 2301B, and I showed them with a chart where taxation wasn't equal, and I showed them also that the valuations were way out of sorts, and I also talked about cap rates and that you're able to show a cap rate. Well, when I submitted a cap rate this year, all of a sudden they took the 100% of my most important deduction, my maintenance, air conditioners, heat pumps, whatever it is, or water heaters, and on, you know, and they cut it and only gave me 15%.
You know, Peter, I think you're being a little humble. And Fernando, maybe you're encouraging him. Maybe you should encourage him not to, because the reality is, and I don't think you're just, I don't think you're explaining the gravity of this situation. And correct me, Peter, if I'm wrong here. This is my understanding of the situation. Fernando, correct me if I'm wrong. Fernando, on his own, without your help, pays an overwhelming amount of money every single year to fight the CAD on the overassessment of his businesses. Is that right so far?
Correct.
Okay. And what Peter has done is said, enough is enough. He's helped spearhead this for you, incurred, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the expenses himself, all because you're a great person. Is that correct so far, Peter?
Yes, he is a great person. He does a lot of good in our community. At Christmas time, he, instead of being with his family, he feeds over 1,000 people that do not have a place to go for Christmas lunch. And I think that's very commendable. And I try to know what's going on in our community. I sit on several boards, but you know what? I know who helps people and not. I want to reiterate one thing. When I went to the last CAD board meeting, I called out and I called for Jim Hudspeth to be fired, which meant all of the new people were culpable because I outlined everything that he was doing wrong and committing a crime against our community and the taxpayers. And it's just wrong and it upsets me, and he just needs to be removed. But I'm going this Thursday, and I've written a letter to the head of the JCAD board, again, outlining what he's done wrong and asking to fire him.
You know, Peter, and I want to ask you as well, Fernando, in a minute. Peter, I can really respect and admire and appreciate the pride of community that you have, the sense of community that you have. It's, man, I miss it. I feel like the last 4 years we've lost a lot of it. Mm-hmm. What you have to acknowledge, not everyone has a Peter in their corner. Having a Peter in their corner is helpful. So what can your community do? And whether it may be elected for office, local office, but what can your community do to change this?
Well, one of the things, Travis, that's happened is the city of Joshua, which is like 6 miles out of Cleveland, their mayor and city council voted a no confidence against Jim Hudspeth. Godley's getting ready to do it. Cleveland's getting ready to do it. Keene is considering it, and Grandview. So with all these votes of no confidence, I've also gone and talked to our county judge, who's a wonderful man, and his commissioners about the same issues. And if we can get enough people to say no confidence, plus showing where he's breaking the law, which he definitely is doing, 2 instances this week. He went and told a school teacher who's working hard that came in and couldn't pay her taxes, her husband works, and instead of having sympathy with her, they said, go get another job. Well, I don't know if that's a RICO or what it is, but that's not right. Let me give you one more instance. A humble man who's a retired police officer I was talking about, he went in and he charges a fair rent of $750. They told him an antitrust they broke and said, you raise your rent to $975. That really ticks me off, Travis.
Yeah.
They're trying to run our world.
Mitch, to bring people together, has created a petition. Do you have anything like that I can link on this video, Peter?
Not yet, but we have a wonderful gentleman named Craig Hundley who has been fighting to get all of these boards changed with better people, and he's done a wonderful job. Our state representative, Helen Kerwin, is on our side. She comes to our meetings, and she's going to fight for this change, because if it doesn't change, it will destroy every city, every state in Texas. It'll destroy the people, the businesses. It just can't hold up to this taxation, Travis.
Fernando, we've been talking about 20 minutes. I want to wrap us up here. Fernando, you've been a business owner for sounds like over 14 years. The community is important to you. You're fighting every single year for your taxes, which could potentially, if your businesses were assessed too high, it could put you out of business.
That is correct.
What can you tell, mom and pop business owners about your situation that maybe you would give them a leg up? Like, what have you learned from all of this?
What I have learned is if you remain silent, first of all, they're going to continue doing it, increasing your property taxes, and then you're not going to be part of the solution. You're going to be part of the problem if I remain silent. I'll tell you this, because what I encourage people to do is they need to show up to those cardboard meetings. They need to show up and let them know how unhappy they are with the excessive amount of property taxes. Because when you're going to search properties, you're going to find out that one of the properties is 50% less than the neighbors or across the street. There's a lot of discrepancies. And because of those discrepancies, people like me end up paying more. So I encourage people to show up to those meetings, let them know what's going on, because I'd rather be the guy who speaks up and hopefully we can get whoever is doing the job wrong, get them fired, instead of seeing my neighbor losing their house because they cannot afford their taxes. A family on the street because the guy who's collecting our taxes is not doing the job right. I'd rather see him going than see my neighbor going with his family on the street.
Hey, Travis, let me give you a quote.
Okay.
For evil to triumph, it only takes good men to do nothing. And that's not what we're here. We're here to do something. And I'm tired of it. Let me just give you one more example before we go. On that evaluation, I have a chart. I'll text it to you. But this chart shows that I've got a gentleman in town, has 26 rental units, 28,000 square feet, and they're taxing him at $274 a square foot. Now, there's another property in town with 100,000 square feet and 120 units, and they are valued at the same, but they're only paying $40 a square foot. So say $274 or $40. Nothing even about that, is there?
Well, I'll say this, Peter. Welcome to the fight, and welcome to the movement. Sign the petition, gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Travis. We appreciate what you're doing.
Mitch, before I get your thoughts on there, let me say this one thing. That interview for me was incredibly powerful. And again, all of this was done today. This entire video was done today. We tracked all these people down. We put it together. Big shout out to you. Thank you, Mitch, for your energy. But man, I got to tell you, the biggest impact that made on me, two things. Number one, I don't understand how someone that's been in business for 14 years can potentially have the legs cut out from underneath them every single year. Every single year could be completely bankrupt. And then the other thing, probably the more powerful thing, the good thing, I got to tell you, man, Peter, he gave me a lot of faith in that there's still people out there that believe in the community and helping it when they see an opportunity to help. I really like Peter, man. What did you get from that interview? What was the biggest takeaway?
I think Peter represents a source of money to help the people that are around him. And on a more national basis, just like we're doing these videos to help people and inform them, if there are other people out there who are fortunate enough and you know that these problems are occurring, go to your attorneys, have your attorneys call, and we'll set you up if you, in fact, you want to file suit on a constitutional basis and you want to file suit on a value basis and you want to press criminal charges. We have the evidence. We've done the heavy lifting for you. And Peter is taking up what we've laid out and moving that situation forward. With regard to the income calculation worksheets that Peter was talking about, and in fact, what Fernando is referring to, there's only so much money that can be had out of a property. Speaking using my own file, one property was $750,000 as established and settled by Denton Central Appraisal District. The following year, they took that value up to 2.8 million. That particular property could not possibly ever generate the money necessary to pay on a tax value at 2.8 million. It just simply can't be done. The math isn't there. Therefore, I would have to write a check for the privilege of owning a property in the state of Texas. And that clearly is not going to happen. Well, Peter didn't articulate it the same way, but the result is the exact same thing. And the exact same thing for Fernando. The money cannot be generated from these companies to pay those taxes. And in essence, what you're hearing, just like in the Kerry case, well, figure out how you're going to get the money to pay your taxes. The damn taxes are a fraud to begin with. Now, either the law exists to protect the United States citizens, and because everybody is touching USPAT, either that law exists or it doesn't. If it doesn't exist, have the balls to say so, and we'll take the necessary steps from that point forward. And that necessary step is, if the law doesn't exist, why in the world are we paying real estate taxes? We have the absolute right under the 5th and 14th Amendment to the US Constitution to due process. Please explain to me, out of everything you've heard from Kerry and all these videos we've put together with all the witnesses, what exactly due process is occurring? I'd love to know, because I sure don't see it.
Yep. Yep. And what math is being used? I mean, again, like you just said, it took us an hour to go through. Anyways, I won't even go there. You know what? I'm just going to end here, Mitch. This is probably going to be an hour-long video. First of all, I want both of Mitch and I, big thank you to Kerry, Fernando, Peter. Thank you for joining the cause. Mitch, really appreciate you, man. You've spearheaded this entire thing. You've created a movement. I'm trying to keep up with you. And for the viewers, join the movement. If you want to stop the corruption and fraud, just, put a little bit of effort, take the 10 seconds in the description, hit the link, sign the petition. And also, guys, reach out. Like you said, reach out to Mitch if you want to file suit. And if you have any intel, reach out to us. We definitely appreciate you guys. And share the video, like it, put it into the hands of your politicians. And, Mitch, I'm going to get to editing this, and after that, it's back to work, I'm sure. Sir,
Yes, sir.
Mitch,
Yes, sir.
I thank you for your time, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you guys, if you're out there investing in real estate, you guys already know, we wish you luck, and we hope you win.